You've already seen the title, so let's get straight into it. Is Guild Wars 3 in development? Short answer, we don't know. It could be. Long answer, I very much believe that ArenaNet has started the development of Guild Wars 3 and we'll get a few more Guild Wars 2 expansions, and that's it. Now, let's actually gaze into the logs and find out why I believe that's the case. We know for a fact that ArenaNet has been toying with the idea of Guild Wars 3, or at least a spin-off of the Guild Wars franchise, already years ago around the Sabetha saga. Evidence for this are job posts published by ArenaNet themselves. Unfortunately, I cannot dig up the original posts anymore, since they are gone. However, I quoted and discussed them back in the day. Also, some of those were quite recent, to be fair. One of these was back in July 2022, so shortly after End of Dragons released, for a combat designer role for an established online fantasy IP, also mentioning it being a multiplayer storytelling experience. And we all know that story is the bread and butter of Guild Wars 2, whether you like it or not. Now, some people I've discussed this with mentioned this could be for the upcoming Horizon MMO or the Dune game ArenaNet had been working on for a short period of time. My counter-argument for these 2 points, however, is that neither Horizon nor Dune can really be called fantasy. They're more like sci-fi in my opinion. Another point to further corroborate this being about a Guild Wars successor, however, is the fact that this combat designer role specifically mentioned iterating on Guild Wars 2's combat system. So it is rather unlikely that this revamped Guild Wars 2 combat system will be used for another game. Now, I haven't played Horizon, but I highly doubt the combat is anything like Guild Wars 2, so this doesn't make any sense. This would just alienate the existing player base in my opinion. Over the years there were also other positions referring to the Guild Wars franchise, but this is the most recent and most likely referring to a potential Guild Wars 3. Now, this might sound like a crazy theory, but hear me out. The new expansion model of Guild Wars 2 is all about standalone story arcs that span over an entire year before moving into the next. Now, this means ArenaNet doesn't have to commit long term to something, like with the Dragon Saga, where a story arc could last anywhere between 2 and 4 years. So, while they potentially chip away at Guild Wars 3 in the background, and they get closer to finishing it, it's not like, well, we're done with Guild Wars 3, but we cannot release it for another 2 years, because we just ended a new story arc. Another reason is, we know that End of Dragons only happened because NCSoft swept in and told them to stop with Sabetha saga and make an expansion instead, because they need to make money. And the same fate has met ArenaNet's other side projects. They haven't made any money. So, with a new expansion model, we know exactly what we're getting every year, which is less than before, but if you want more detailed insight into that, watch my video on the expansion model comparison. In any case, we get less content, but now we also pay for it. This means that we're directly funding Guild Wars 3 that way. They no longer have it as a side project that is not making any money. And the final reason about how the new expansion model allows ArenaNet to develop Guild Wars 3 is simple. As I already said, we get less content, but ArenaNet themselves admitted that they are long done with the base and expansion Secrets of the Obscure, and they're already working on content 1 year ahead. In case you don't know what this means, they have an entire year of cushion to spend resources on Guild Wars 3. If it's not the case already, they can comfortably work on both at the same time. Well, as you can see, there are many reasons about how a Guild Wars successor could possibly be in the works. And with a new expansion model, they can easily stop at any moment. Or even with an expansion that leads into the next game, similar to how Eye of the North led into Guild Wars 2. I want to mention, however, while I'm saying Guild Wars 3, there is no evidence to actually suggest it being a successor to Guild Wars 2. It could be a story-driven spin-off game, it could also be a Guild Wars 1 remaster, we don't know until there's more information. While discussing these topics, Nike also made a good point. Instead of Guild Wars 3, it might as well be called The Guild Wars and play before Guild Wars 1, during, well, the actual Guild Wars. Or it could be called just Guild Wars and be a fresh start for their MMO. We know that Guild Wars 2 had a rather rough start, and if they left it for a year or two long in the cooker, it could have been much bigger. So that's another reason. All of this is just my wild theory, however, so take it with a grain of salt. I'd love to hear what you think about this theory and the evidence. Let's discuss. Do you think Guild Wars 2 is the last entry in the franchise?